Hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're going to be talking about the Beall Tool Company's wood threading kit. Well, as I said in the intro, this is what we're talking about today, and this is the Beall wood threader. This is the 3-thread kit for the 1/2 inch, 3/4, and 1 inch. It does both interior and exterior threads, right-handed, and I'll tell you the story about it. And what the story is I've wanted one of these for a while. I'm not sure exactly why, but I ended up winning the football pool at work, and that threw me some extra cash, and I decided why not. So I picked this up. I haven't had the chance to use it yet or do anything with it, but I do have quite a few projects in mind for the show using this particular unit. I think you guys are going to enjoy some of those. But what I'm going to do on the show today is I'm going to go through this particular kit. We're going to set it up. There are some parts that you have to make to go with the entire kit. We're going to set this up. We're going to take it for a test spin, and we're going to make some thread and some nuts together and give you guys my opinion on what I think of this on its first impression. Well, I'll start off by showing you what you get inside this kit. Now, I'm not a huge fan of unboxing videos, and really, I hate to do this, but how can you know what you're looking at for this kit if I don't tell you what's in it? So, let's open this up. Let's get my receipt out of there. Wouldn't want that. But you get your instruction manual. And this is your main unit. They've got some foam packaging in here to keep things half decent. You've got your main unit here for threading. This gets clamped in your vise. You've got a 1/2 inch tap. You've got a 1 inch tap. The 3/4 tap. And as well here, these are your, I'm just going to call them, I'm not sure, your templates maybe? For your 1/2 inch and your 1 inch threading, this one here being your 3/4. And lastly, you've got a bag of different hardware, clamping utilities here, and of course your router bit. I do know that there's certain accessories that you're required to build, like a turn handle, and that's all included in this manual here. And I think that's where we're going to start with today's setup video. I think we're going to go into the instructions here, and we're going to build ourselves one of the turn handles that they talk about for spinning the threads onto a dowel. So what they've provided you with here is a full-size drawing for a wooden tap handle. If you don't have a metal one, you could build your own. I think we might venture into that today, go for the whole setup experience. And as well, the crank handle. And what this crank handle is for is it will hold your dowel with a handle, and once you start cutting the threads on the dowel, you use this handle to crank them through so that the threads can be cut. It's just an aid to help you instead of having to turn the dowels by hand. So we're going to make one of these, and yeah, I think we're going to do this tap handle as well. Like I said, let's do the whole experience here, do the whole setup. After all, we got a half-hour show, why not? The first thing I want to do though is, this is the original. I don't want to muck up the original, so I'm going to take a photocopy of this so that I have a template of what to cut. So a photocopy, and then I'm going to pick out some stock here. So I've picked out some scrap and I've cut it to the dimensions. So for the tap handle, I've got 2 pieces, and I'm going to use maple just to give it some serious stability. So I've got 2 pieces at 3/4 by 3/4 by 6.5, and we'll be making the tap handles out of that. I've also got this piece of maple, and this is 3/4 of an inch thick. I think it's just over 2 inches wide, and it's 7 inches long. And I'm going to be cutting out this pattern and using spray adhesive I'm going to let the spray adhesive tack up for 3 minutes, and I'm going to apply the pattern. From there, I'm going to drill the through holes of 1 inch, 3/4, and 1/2 inch at these spots where they're marked out, as well as a hole for the handle. I'm also going to cut this groove here, drill the hole for this carriage bolt to go through. They're calling for a 1/4 20 by 2 inch carriage bolt. I'm going to see what I have in one of the jars up on the shelves. It's not rocket science as to how to build this. This is fairly simple stuff, and I really don't think that you need a video of how to make this thing. But what I will do is I'll do all of the necessary drilling and cutting, and then I'm going to bring it back to you and show you exactly what it is that we ended up with. Well, I've got the tap handle made, and it's not rocket science here, guys. From the end of each one of these blocks, 1/4 of an inch in, I've drilled a hole, I believe it's 17/64 in diameter. That's just one size up from a 1/4 inch, just to give me some play in the bolt. And then 1 3/4 of an inch in, we've drilled another hole. So 1/4 inch in, 1 3/4 inch in, and same on the other one. And at this point, at 1 inch into the point, I've used a router bit and put this little groove in each piece. And essentially all we do is when we're tapping the hole, our tap will sit in our homemade tap handles, and you just give it a little crank down like that on both sides. And because of that notch in either piece, this is going to hold it firmly so that you can put it in your hole and turn it as such to thread the inside of the nut that you're making. This is one of the taps for threading the nuts. So a little mini tap handle here, and like I said, all the dimensions and everything are right in the kit. I'm going to round off the corners of this and make it a little easier to use, sort of thing. But essentially the tap handle here is done. Rustic? Yes. Will it do the job? 100%. Well, here we've got the two accessories now made in order to make these threads. I've already shown you this being the tap handle. The only difference is now I've given it a good sanding, and I've used a 1/8 roundover bit on the handle parts just to make it a little easier on the hands. We've got these 3-inch carriage bolts with some there's a 1/4 20 thread, and of course a 1/4 20 wing nut with a washer on each one. They're this long should you need, or should you decide to go with the bigger kits that do the much larger threads. You're going to need that extra room to get the tap in this these notches that you've done. For this piece here, this is our crank for turning our dowel in for the thread, and essentially it's this slot that's put in here with a 1/2 inch, there's a 3/4 and a 1 inch hole. There's a 1/2 inch dowel for a handle, and this is a 2 inch carriage bolt with a 1/4 20 thread. The thread count doesn't matter for anyone who's using metric. You can use whatever type of bolt you have. It's just something where you put your dowel in the appropriate sized hole. You will crank down on this, and you can see that this closes up now at the end. That clamps your dowels in, and effectively now you can turn this as it goes through the router and the jig setup in order to get your threads cut properly in the dowels. So there's our two accessories made, and again the plans are full size that come with the kit, so really you shouldn't have any issues here. I made mine out of maple and took extra time with sanding and that sort of thing, but that's just what I do. We've got these done. I think it's time now that we actually get into the setup of this jig and see if we can't try to cut some threads. Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to take the base, the piece of maple here that they have provided. with this kit, and you want to firmly mount it. Make sure it's nice and secure in your bench vise, or clamp it to the side of your bench. Whatever you can do to make it nice and secure so that it's not going to move. I've removed this plate, and the reason I've removed it is with the new setup, this is a newer version of this particular threading jig. But with the new version, there's 2 screws that hold in the cylinders for threading. And the way that you remove them is you have to remove this plate. So I've got it removed, and now we're just going to take it and screw it back on. Now, each one of these bases has these metal threaded inserts, which is kind of nice. You don't have to worry about aligning or stripping out the maple of this base. So the feed direction for this will be in this way, and you can tell the feed direction because if you reach inside here, there's no threads here, but yet on this side you can feel threads. So the feed direction goes in the side where there is no threads. So we'll just get this screwed back together. You guys want to keep in mind here as well, this is new to me, so I'm not claiming to be an expert on this video. I have no clue at this point what I'm doing or what kind of results we're going to come up with. So it may sound like I've got all kinds of confidence coming out here, but really I'm a newbie at this, and this is my first experience. So I'm just taking you guys along. I haven't cut a thing with this as of yet. Hopefully it works out, otherwise we're going to have something for the blooper reel. So there you go, it's put together. We're going to do a 3/4 inch dowel for testing, for threading, and I've got it securely clamped with the base placed on here. The next thing you want to do is you want to install that carbide bit that they provided you with in the kit. I say they provided you with it like you didn't pay for it in the price, yeah, but you know what I mean. Anyway, you want to install that bit. It's extremely sharp, so please be careful. But you want to install it so that it protrudes about 3/4 of an inch below the surface of your router. Now for this, I'm using a trim router. I was going to use my DeWalt fixed base, but it had a 1/2 inch collet in it at the time, and I wasn't in the mood to change the collet, so I decided I was going to use the trim router. Hopefully this will be okay, and I guess we're going to find out. But we've got this installed. Now what you want to do is you want to locate, there's a little knurled guide that will be in the kit. You want to find that and place it into this top hole right here. So there is the knurled guide. Let me see if I can get a non-blurry close-up of that. And there you are. It's a guide to center the router to make sure that your threads are being cut properly. So you just want to place it into your jig with that little collar facing down, and wow, that's a tight fit. Okay, but that's good. Tight is good. That means we get good alignment. So now that you have that aligned, take your carbide bit and very carefully now, so you don't chip or break anything, just lower it down onto that knurled guide. And now that has your router perfectly set up and aligned to do the routing of your threads. Well, as much as I love that overhead view for the visual, it really doesn't serve the purpose for showing you how to clamp this in, so I've changed the camera angle. The kit comes with carriage bolts here and some brackets that are used to clamp your router into place, and they also have the washers and the wing nuts here to clamp these things down. So now that your router is nicely aligned, you want to put a carriage bolt up each side just like this, and your longer leg, you can see there's a longer and a shorter leg here. The longer leg will go on the outside of the router, and you just want to snug it up just like that and get a washer on there that is sticking to my fingers. Why would it not? And just clamp it down into the jig. So you've got the one side clamped here securely, and we're going to go and clamp this side now. Make sure you've got a really good clamping pressure on here. You don't want this router being able to move at all during the thread cutting process. Both sides of the router are clamped in, and we just want to give this just a little tweak. I've got some needle nose pliers here, needle nose, long nose, whatever you prefer to call them. But just give it a little bit of one more little snug up kind of thing, just to make sure that it's good and sturdy in this base. Like I said, we don't want this moving. Well, that's done. Now that we're finished up with that, we can raise this router up out of the base and take that knurled center out of it. I just want to point out too, guys, when you're messing around like this, please, see that? Power's off. There's no power to the router. Please don't have this thing plugged in when you're mucking around with it. That's a good way to lose a finger or, you know, do some serious damage. So let's raise it up and get that knurled center out of there, and then we can move on to the next step. Well, truth be told, in order to get this to release, I had to actually remove the router motor right out of the body or the base. And that's okay. I mean, it's no big deal. But that is something that you want to keep in mind. It's extremely important to pull that sleeve out. If you don't pull the sleeve out, it'll rotate inside of this bushing here for making your threads, and it will melt it and damage this one piece. And I mean, these kits aren't cheap, so you really don't want to do that. Like they say in the manual, it will ruin your day, and I kind of found that a little humorous when I read that, but yeah, it'll definitely ruin your day. So everything's set up nice and tight, everything's ready to go here, except for now we got to get that depth of the router bit. And we're going to lower the router bit until the tip of it is protruding down through this hole about 1/32 of an inch. Now this is probably not rocket science here. I mean, we're going to try it and just see how we do. I'm not sure if that's 1/32 or not. We're gonna try it and just see how we do with that. Again, the measurements that they give you here, they seem more like suggestions. And I'm pretty sure with the different size threads and the different species of wood, etc., etc., it's going to take some playing around to get it right and to get it all adjusted. So let's just say that we're right in what we've got here and move on with the instructions. Well, I've changed the camera angle once again, trying to give you guys the best view of this that I can. Don't forget your PPE here, guys, safety glasses, and especially hearing protection. These routers scream, and I'm telling you, over the years, you're seriously going to damage your hearing if you don't put something like that on. So I've got a piece of 3/4 dowel into my jig that I made earlier, or my crank handle. I've cranked this down. It's in there nice and secure. Now, according to the directions, I basically just turn on the router, stick this in here, and then I turn this at 1 turn per second. So let's try this and see how we make out. And then once we see the threads, we will troubleshoot them according to the manual and just see how it goes with the adjustment. Okay, so that first attempt, it was very difficult to turn the dowel, and according to the instructions, that means you've got your bit too high, so there's not enough material being cut away. So I lowered it, and I lowered it way too much and absolutely destroyed the thread. So no problem, we're going to adjust again and see how we make out. Okay, well those threads aren't too bad, but according to the directions, we need to get a little more flat surface here on this thread. It's a little too pointy. So in order to do that, we need to raise the bit up just a little more. And for my liking, I think I'd like to get that just a little bit more of a flat spot there. So I'm going to raise it just a touch more. It's all part of the learning process of how to use the jig, guys. So don't think of this as a pain in the neck or as a frustration. It's more of a learning process. All right, this one here is looking good. Let me just see if I can show it to you. Just get it out of the jig. Pull it up there and focus in on that. It's got some nice flat areas there, and the thread looks good. I think I'm going to keep this one, and I think we'll move on now to making a nut. Well, I'm going to move on and make the nuts to see how the thread actually works. And I've got a piece of maple here. It's 7/16 of an inch thick. The thickness of it doesn't really matter. I mean, you can make it however thick you like. This just happens to be a piece that I had kicking around here, so I decided to use it. Anyway, what I've done is, this is 1.5 inches wide, so I've marked 1.5 inches and then 1.5 inches. I'm going to make two just in case I screw one up. And then I've marked the center point. Now, to start with, what you want to do with this particular process is, this is going to be a 3/4 inch thread. So you want to drill a hole that is 1/8 of an inch smaller than the tap that you're going to be using. So 3/4 of an inch. 1/8 less would be 5/8 of an inch. So I'm going to get a Forstner bit and I'm going to drill 5/8 of an inch holes in the center of each one of these blocks after I center punch it. So 2 5/8 of an inch diameter through holes drilled, and the next step, it'll help with tapping as well as make it look better. We need to take a large countersink bit and we're going to countersink both sides of both of these holes. We have our 3/4 tap installed in our shop-made tap handles, and these have a kind of a guide bushing on the end here. So we've got the countersink done on both sides, and it's as simple as just gently turning this into the wood. It's very sharp and you should have no problems cutting it. That guide bushing that's on the end is going to help guide it in so that those threads are cut square and true. Of course, the thicker the material of the nut, the better job that the bushing is going to be able to do. And you'll be able to tell when you're done. I mean, it becomes extremely easy to turn, and at that point in time you're pretty much done threading that nut. So you can back it off and go ahead and thread the next one. You saw how simple that was. I mean, that's it. That's all there was to it. So let's thread this next one, and then we can start shaping these nuts. Well, all I've done here for the 1.5 inch nut is from the center mark, I've come out 1/4 inch on either side of it, and I'm just going to do a 45 line on either side to give us that hex shape. Once I get that finished, I'm going to take it over to the scroll saw. I'm going to cut these out and then over to the belt sander just to finish them off to give them those crisp edges. And there we have the nuts for it. I made a cap on the end of this just to make it into a wooden bolt. Same process as making the nuts, except I didn't thread it and I didn't do a through hole. Now, these thinner nuts, while they do work, you can see quite a bit of wobble there. Can you see that as I'm putting that on? I'm not really a big fan of that wobble. And just as in true hardware, as far as metal hardware, thinner nuts in general don't really work very well. So live and learn there. Like I said, there's a learning process. So get rid of those. I did make a couple, however, out of some 3/4 inch thick stock. And these babies hold beautifully. And they go on and they lock in there quite tight. I tried to double nut them, and very successfully, I might add. And they really lock onto that thread. Just beautiful. I'm quite pleased with the results of this this experiment here with the wooden nuts and the bolt. So I think all in all, the day's efforts were a success. So I don't know, wooden nut and bolt, pretty cool. And there you have it. The Beall Tool Wood Threader. I'm really happy with these results. I mean, you saw on the show, it took me 4 tries to get it adjusted to make the thread successfully. I'm not concerned about that. Every new tool, especially a jig, even one that you made in your own shop, takes quite a bit of mucking around and finagling in order to get it set properly to get the results that you want. As I said in the last segment, thicker nuts are the way to go in this case if that's, you know, what you want for the threads for, you know, a wooden nut and bolt application. I gotta tell you, I'm really excited about this. I mean, this particular jig opens up a whole new section of project ideas for the show. And I've got several in mind, and I'm so glad that this was a success today, because that makes those projects that I have the ideas for for future episodes, it brings them that much closer to fruition. So this is awesome. Really pleased with this. My initial thoughts on the jig, it's pricey. It is really pricey. And would I have gone out and purchased this jig just out of my bank account if I didn't have the football pool winnings? I don't know, maybe eventually I would have, but I've had this on my Christmas and birthday wish list probably for three years or more now, and I haven't gone out and purchased it up until this point. So that kind of says something there. The price point is up there. I mean, this thing is well, you can look it up depending on where you get it. I'm not going to bother spewing out prices because it might be different in your area or at your supplier. But I'm quite pleased with the quality of it. The bit seems to be really well done. Like it's a nice bit. The actual jig itself is nice. Those collars, I forget what they make, but they're like a plasticky material. Those are absolutely fantastic. They're beautifully milled. They fit seamlessly. I mean, it's a well done jig. It's well thought out, and I'm quite pleased with the purchase. I'm telling you, I'm excited about this. We're going to take this a little further in some future episodes of the show. But if you have the opportunity to kick some serious butt in your football pool at work, feel free to get yourself one of these guys. It's something else. It is pretty cool. Either way, guys, I want to thank you for joining me again this week. It's been a blast. I've had a lot of fun today playing with this new toy, and hopefully you've had some fun watching me screw it up. So thanks for watching, and I'm going to see you again soon, maybe next week, with yet another woodworking video.